Hello and welcome back to our webcast on getting off to a great start at school. I guess just like adults, kids have their good days and their not so good days. Some days they might be up, the next they might be a bit tired and moody. But there are stages, particularly around puberty, when those mood swings can be far more pronounced and really challenging to navigate as a parent. We've had a number of parents ask for advice on dealing with teenagers who've turned into complete strangers overnight. Martine, tell us what happens to our kids when they hit puberty, and should we cut them some slack?
I think that the physical changes are obvious, and going with that is an increased need to eat and an increased need to sleep. The emotional changes are to do with a change in priorities, social priorities. Their friends are much more important. We're chopped liver during this time.
That's not very nice.
No, they're not interested in us. And so they will withdraw and they will be moody, and we do need to, as long as they're safe in those behaviours, we need to cut them some slack.
So as a doctor, what would concern you? What sort of behaviour would worry you?
I think evidence that behaviours are becoming unsafe. So, for example, particularly in girls, evidence that they're eating less, exercising more, losing weight in an unsafe way. So evidence that they might have an eating disorder. Evidence that they're drinking or using drugs. That, you know, the important part of their brain, their prefrontal cortex, is developing at this time. And although they might be 16 on the outside, they're 6 on the inside, and we need that brain to have a chance to develop. I think if they are withdrawing not only from us, but from their friends and from their activities that previously they enjoyed, that to me would be a concern as well and make me wonder what's going on underneath.
Greg, as well as being a teacher and a principal, you've raised 5 now adults. What advice can you give?
I think just building on from that, knowing that it is such a rapid change that's going on with them physically, and often we get that emotional and instinctive behaviour. From a parent's perspective, I think it's still keeping the conversations where possible, knowing that even though they appear they're not listening and preoccupied, they are taking some things in. The other thing I think is when the child through adolescent time wants to talk, and you are there to listen, and you can empathise and share your own experiences with them, and being able to still try to connect with them. In the education environment though, as I said, we need to really teach the social outcomes, and we need to have a look at how we put very clear values around being responsible, what's responsible behaviour, and we teach the children, and again right through the adolescent time it's very important, what does it mean to be responsible in the classroom, moving around the school, moving to and from school, so that they know what it looks like to be like that. One of the things I very much subscribe to though is Stephen Covey's work around, among other things, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when he talks about putting the gap between the stimulus and the response, and particularly through this teenage period of being able to get particularly male adolescents to be able to think before they respond, and we often see that behaviour where they might be being tormented or teased, and you know, just like young boys do, and all of a sudden someone might hit someone, they fall down, they could fracture their skull, they could be dead, so that in that 30 seconds there's a massive consequence not only for that person as an individual, but the families all involved and the extended family. So it's really important that we start to look at getting that. Or, you know, when a girl receives an email at night and she wants to go straight back and respond to it, maybe it's better just to think about how I will respond to that, leave it till morning, have a considered think about it before I shoot it back off again. So
sometimes that's a hard lesson to learn though, Greg, even as an adult. It
is a very hard lesson, but I suppose what Covey talks about, and I think is very important though, it's really what distinguishes us as human beings, and it is something we need to learn. It could be a millisecond, that gap, or it could be, as I said, quite a long duration before we respond, but it's something that we need to develop in our young people.
Beverly, we've had a mother write in frustrated because she says punishment just does not work on her teenage daughter, that she can ground her 15-year-old, but her daughter will go out anyway. What power does a parent have once their child becomes a teenager?
Perhaps I can say something a bit about adolescence first, because the task of adolescence is to go from childhood through into adulthood, and you're not going to wake up 18 and know what to do, and you're going to have some stuff ups along the way, and they'll be okay. they'll pop out the other end. I think as well, as parents, we tend to get scary because our teenagers take more risks and start doing more things, and so we tighten down and we try to control and say, you can't go out, that's it, you're grounded. And I understand why we do that, because we're trying to make it safe and okay. But we have to actually pull back a bit and give them some independence and give them some space and help them with their choices. I think probably the best thing we can do is to help negotiate. So if they say, I'm coming in at 1 o'clock and you can't stop me, you might say, well, I think you should be home by 10, but what do you think's reasonable? And somehow come to a middle point. It doesn't always work, but you have to give it your best shot and listen to them.
I know other parents have written in and said that they feel they can't talk to their child anymore, that what was once a really close relationship now feels very distant.
Yeah.
How do you talk to a teenager?
Yeah. Well, firstly, to say again, this is a normal part of adolescent development. It's pretty horrible for us parents on the other end, but it is normal, and they will be talking to their friends way more than us. In terms of helping them know how to talk, do things alongside. So perhaps when you're driving along in the car, don't do the eye contact thing. They won't like that. Maybe if you drag them to the sink and they're washing up with you, no. But anything alongside, yes.
Yeah.
And talk about things they're interested in. And teenagers can go silent for days and then suddenly start a conversation. Well, be on your guard and follow it up straight away, but don't ask too many questions like me.
So let's talk about behaviour in the classroom. One parent has said that she's been told her child is disruptive and distracted in class and to do something about it. I think the parent feels like the teacher wants her to be responsible, wants the parent to be responsible. But this parent has asked, isn't classroom management the job of the teacher? What's your suggestion?
Classroom management certainly is the job of the teacher. However, educating a child is a partnership between home and school. And the teacher was probably ringing home a little bit desperate perhaps, but asking for some help about what can we do to help this child become more settled in class and therefore learn a little bit more effectively. So I think it's really important that the teacher and the parent are on the same page with the child, that they have consistent expectations and consistency in the strategies that are used to manage that child. I often say to my parents when we discuss these sorts of strategies and talk about it, I often use the term, we've got them surrounded. And if we do that, then we've got them in a safety net where they feel supported and where we can be effective in the classroom and where the child can be happy at home and at school.
So rather than the parent feeling defensive about it, they should see that almost as a bit of an olive branch, you know.
Absolutely.
That there's this gesture that we're on the same page, let's work as a team.
When teachers ring home, it's a wonderful opportunity for parents to engage in the education of their children and to have some input into their education. And certainly teachers want to be in partnership with the parents of the kids that they're teaching.
Martine, just to sum up, I know we've talked a lot about normal teenage behaviour, but could you just run through the sorts of things again that would ring alarm bells for you as a doctor?
I think, as I said, any evidence of changes in eating behaviour, changes in exercise levels, significant loss of weight is going to ring alarm bells for eating disorders, and that's a big issue, particularly among girls in this age group. I think evidence of any drinking at all or any use of any drugs is going to be concerning. I think that withdrawal, not wanting to be with their friends anymore, not wanting to do the activities that they used to do is a big issue.
So that would show signs that they were perhaps unhappy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or that there might be something more going on. Are they anxious? Are they depressed? I think as parents, it's really important to trust your instincts, that if you're worried, I think it's a role of a parent to be able to sleep at night. And if that involves having a few conversations, parents of your children's friends, teachers, and your general practitioner, I think have those conversations.
Absolutely, good advice. Now, for more information, make sure you check out the videos, podcasts and articles listed under Wellbeing on the School A to Z website.